Hello, this is a behind the scenes look at how I did the effects for my video parody of September about the Saluda grade in Saluda, North Carolina. And I have thought of this parody for a long time, and I wanted to rip off the music video, not just the song. And so I thought I'd try out some of these effects. But I am not as skilled with some of these special effects as some people. Also, I'm using Cyberlink PowerDirector, which there isn't too many awful tutorials on, or too awful many. One of those. There might be plenty of awful tutorials, and this might be one of them. But I wanted to rip off the special effects. Now, you see those nice motion trails, if you could call them that, behind all the people of Earth, Wind, and Fire. I wanted to see how I could copy that. Now, there's a couple tutorials on YouTube about how to do that with After Effects and a couple other things. But they all involve cutting the person out, and I really didn't have time to cut a person out. I'd much rather use green screen effects, but there's a problem with that for me, which is I don't really have a green screen. I usually end up using our white garage door if I need to use any special effects like that. Because cutting a person out frame by frame is a pain, even with the latest version of, or second latest version of PowerDirector I have. So to improvise, just admiring my Rick Astley impersonation right there. To improvise, I took a very large light outside on our back porch of my parents' house and lit it off into the distance. The woods is fairly far off. There's a little railing there, but it's black, so it blends in. And I stood in front of the light and had a perfectly black background. And I could use the color removal, color separation technology of chroma key, or that is called chroma key, and separate the individual layers, which I shall show off in this video. It's kind of slow sometimes, so I'll remove the keying effect that's on there and wait for it to catch up, because this computer, I think it just barely passes the bare minimum requirements to run Cyberlink PowerDirector 19 is what this one is, yeah. I think they just came out with the latest version within the last few months. Well, the computer is not cooperating with this. I might as well just start over from nothing. So, let's see. Here's completely starting over from nothing. Select whatever video file you want to do. I'm just going to select one. That was another thing. I didn't do a preview. Usually you don't add special effects to a video until after you decide how it's going to be cut, but I kind of did it backwards. Now, let's use chroma key. I put a background because since the background would automatically be black, if I remove the color black, you won't see what it is that I've removed. So if you remove the color black from this picture, look at that background. Shouldn't have recorded this at 1050 or somewhere around there. So I usually narrow the range to about 7 and 7. And you can still see through me, but you can still see through in some of the originals. And if I had a larger amount of time and this wasn't just some silly nonsense project, I would have tried to do better of not having holes in my head. I unlink the video and the audio, so it's just less to deal with on the editing way of things. Now, if I just have 2 layers here, but I'm going to offset it by 15 frames, so half a second. You can see the effect. It's just 2 layers at this point. But you can see through both of the layers to the background behind it. So if you were wanting to make a motion trail like that, like I've been doing in the video, I just had it 1 frame delayed. And then I add a ton of tracks. 33 tracks was usually what I ended up adding. So I had a motion trail that followed me for a little over a second. So I'd have about 36 different frames. And I just copy the stuff that I've edited and paste it and shift it around to where it's one frame delayed, and do that for a not too awful long. It only took me about 15 minutes to do quite a few minutes of video, because that's one thing. If you cut it up into smaller slices, you have to do this part of the process way more times. So I usually would select all, just use the unedited file of me doing 2 takes or 1 take of the whole song in whatever outfit I was wearing, and I would start it rendering. But one issue with that is it takes a long time to render, because this is a like 30 or 40 layers of 4K video that's 30 frames per second, getting upscaled to 60 frames per second with all these, chroma key and hard to process effects. So it'd take a while to render it. So the way it worked out really well, because I ended up going to a train event in Charlotte this past week. So I recorded all of these videos on 2 different nights, recorded some testing on one night, and then did the rest on the second night, and then started rendering the video before I would go to Charlotte for this train thing. When I'd get home, it was barely done rendering. 8 hours later, would start another video rendering, and when I get up, it'd usually be almost done, and after that would be done, repeat the process and render 1 or 2 videos a day, because I had a few that took 22 hours to render because it was 9-minute takes. So a time-consuming process for the computer, not so much for me. And like, here's an example of trying to render this. Yeah, it's not going to go fast. It's 4 minutes, and the ticker is going up with every minute. And I'd say it'd probably take, if it was all the layers, it'd take somewhere around 8 hours with my computer. And so that's how I would get the motion trail effect. But there's also, and this is much easier to figure out, the dancing with myself portions of the video. This one, I did it as its own standalone video editing file, so it'd just be easier to fix things if there was something wrong with it, since it was only about 10 seconds long. I didn't want to have to render a whole 3-minute video to fix, little things. So all the black has been removed from each of these video files, so they can be layered on top of each other fairly easily. And then I have those little yellow dots are keyframes, and those keyframes tell how big the picture is supposed to be and what its position on the screen is. And so by moving what the position is by those keyframes, like if I move this is just its position, not its height. If I make it move to that position a few seconds sooner, the one of me in the middle moves to the back really quick, but he appears to move back forward because that's the position that he ends up in. And the camera zooms in, but it's not really zooming in, it's the picture's getting larger. So another thing, while I'm showing off all this, the 4 of me dancing together effect I did by having quite a few layers. Now this one I didn't offset the time any, so they're all synced up. There's no delay in action. So same chroma key to remove the black, layered on top of each other. If we look at the keyframes to tell position and height, they're all the same height. They're just offset by 50 on the X and Y axis, something like that. And also with each layer back, the opacity, which is how see-through the layer is. It's 10 units of measurement, I guess, more see-through. So if it was opacity of 0, you couldn't see through it at all, or couldn't see it at all. One of those two. And this is just how I recorded the audio, the same way I'm recording this audio now. Got a nice audio setup, nice blue bottle, or is it the baby bottle? I think it's just a bottle. I forget. I got the box somewhere around here. It doesn't say on the box what it is. I've forgotten. It's been like a year since I got this thing. So I screamed into the microphone for about an hour in the isolation of Cedar Mountain Lodge, if you know where that is. Room number 9, the most isolated room out of the lot. The night before I moved out of that room, I stayed up till midnight, since there was nobody around, nobody in the room next to me or around me. I screamed into the microphone since I had a little bit of privacy. And yeah, so that's about it for this behind the scenes. It might be useful to you if you use Cyberlink PowerDirector. If not, it may still be useful to you. But anyway, if you appreciate it, I'd be happy to do more behind the scenes videos. I actually do need to record some narration for some railroad construction videos at some point, both my own railroad and elsewhere that I have. But we'll see if I can get around to that at some point. But anyway, thank you for watching and listening to this.